Panel members ready to roll? Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
We ready? My name is Larry Swartz. I'm the chair of this panel, and this is in accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, a Committee of Adjustment meeting of the City of Toronto. It's called to order. So again, my name is Larry Swartz. I'm the chair. To my left, I'll introduce panel member, Mr. Marziari. At my far left, close left, Mr. Bartolo. To my right, to my far right, Ms. Sankar. To my near right, Mr. Kubu, the panel members for today. Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from provisions of the zoning that apply to property. It also considers permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and it considers consent to sever property to create new lots. Now I'll do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. That is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. This hearing is a hybrid format. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are conducted in hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person. Others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, which is an online digital platform. Meetings are also streamed in the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and they have the option of participating video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator one at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. In terms of receiving a copy of the decision, those attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card. Those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the TLAB, that's the Toronto Local Appeal Body. Or in some limited circumstances, you may be able to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal, which is the OLT. However, The provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies, as those are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Hearing procedure. I will call each item in the order listed in the agenda. In terms of making your submissions, where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. Any presentation or other materials you may wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we first call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. That will mark the end of the discussion. Then the application will be taken into committee for a decision. So, I'd like to ask for confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting? Okay.
Mr. Chair, just through you for clarification, it's not from the last meeting, it's from our June 20th hearing.
Oh, June 20th. All right. So we do not have the last meeting, but we do have minutes from June 20th. And we do have a motion by Mr. Kubu to adopt those minutes from June 20th, and we need a seconder, please, from panel members. Mr. Mariziari, all those in favor? The motion is carried. Are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff for any items? Seeing none. On to deferral requests. Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferral?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no morning requests at this time.
Thank you. And then in terms of motions, are there any files to be closed this morning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no files to be closed at this time.
Thank you. All right. Having taken care of all that business, we will now move on to the business of hearings. And we will start with the first one, which I will introduce. So the first one is 364 Greenfield Avenue. This is an application for consent to sever the property into 2 parcels of land. And it is accompanying a minor variance. The minor variance is is filed, and it deals with construction of 2 detached dwellings. This involves actually 3 parts. There's the application, and then there's part 1 and part 2. The numbers are as outlined in the agenda, but let me deal with the application and the documents on file for that. We have a number of reports in relation to the application, and those include a transportation report, a staff report, a ravine report, a heritage report, an engineering report, and an arborist report. Since we're going to be dealing with all 3 at once, I'll also note that for part 1 of this application, there are also several reports and documents filed. The reports include an arborist report, a forestry report, and a staff report. For part 2, we also have an arborist report and a forestry report and a staff report and several other documents. I'm going to get to the staff report in a moment. Just to outline the conveyances, there's a conveyance of part 1 that has a proposed lot frontage of 15.27 meters and a proposed lot area of 323.99 square meters, and the part 2 that is retained after the part 1 is conveyed, there is a part 2 proposed lot frontage of 15.27 meters, which is the same as the part 1, and also a proposed lot area almost the same as part 1, but 323.97 square meters. Now, I'm going to summarize a bit of the staff reports. The applicant has indicated to staff that there are some revisions. Just outline those. Removing variance number 1. We'll get through them again. Modifying variance number 2, modifying variance number 5, modifying variance number 7, modifying variance number 8, and modifying variance number 9. That's in respect of part 1. In respect of part 2, excuse me, there is similarly removing variance number 1, modifying 2, modifying 7, modifying 8, modifying 9, and removing number 10. Difference between those two is in part 1 we're modifying, or we're removing 9. Part 2 we're modifying 9, removing 10. Staff has recommendations if those changes aren't made. Let me talk about what those variances are very briefly. For part 1, the first variance is a proposed rear deck, projection, proposed front yard setback, proposed east yard setback, proposed lot frontage, proposed lot coverage, proposed lot area, proposed platform encroachment, proposed window encroachment, and proposed chimney encroachment. That's in respect of part 1 of the application. And in respect of part 2, just outline them briefly. There's a proposed rear deck projection, proposed front yard setback, proposed east yard setback, proposed west yard setback, proposed lot area, proposed lot frontage, proposed lot coverage, proposed platform encroachment, proposed window encroachment, and proposed chimney encroachment. Those are the variances outlined quickly in respect of this application. Now, we are going to see who is here, and it looks to me that there is one person who is the agent of the applicant. So, is the agent of the applicant here in person or online? They're on audio. Okay.
Good morning, Mr.
So would you
Chair.
please step forward to the audio, state your name, state your address for the record, and then you will have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 364 Greenfield Avenue.
Good morning and welcome. So Ida Evangelista, and what's your address?
53 Bentworth Avenue, Toronto.
Okay, thank you. So please proceed with your presentation. I'm presuming panel members, you want to hear a presentation. It looks like there's nobody in them. But
Mr. Chair, through you, the agent should be noting the changes made on record, please, before she starts her presentation.
you should be noting.
She needs to read out to us on record what changes she is making to the application before she proceeds with her presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. But I'm assuming from the panel, we all want to hear from her unless anybody says otherwise, because there are a number of changes. So, all right. So, Madam Agent, please outline the changes you're making to the application and then proceed with your 5 minutes. All right?
Yes, Mr. Chair. All the changes were submitted after dealing with planning. We've worked together to perfect the application. That being said, let's start with part one. Part one, variance number 1, we have removed. Variance number 2, we've increased it to 5.95 meters. That is our new front yard setback. We've pushed the house back further. Variances 3 and 4 remain same. Variance 5, we have reduced the coverage to 32.52%. Variance 6 remains same. Variance 7, our platform now encroaches 2.92 meters. Variance number 8, our window now encroaches 2.16. It's being modified to 2.16. And variance number 9, the chimney encroachment has been removed. And as you see, it's consistent with planning's comments. Now we will move on to part 2. Variance number 1 has been removed. We no longer have a deck projection for either part. Variance number 2, we have increased the front yard setback to 5.95 meters. Variance 3, 4, 5, 6 remain same. Variance 7, lot coverage is now 32.52%. Variance number 8 has been now modified and reduced to 2.92 meters. Variance number 9 has now been reduced to 2.16 meters. And variance number 10, the chimney encroachment has been removed.
So is that it for your changes?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Maybe.
And as you can see, my changes are in line with the memorandum that planning has provided.
All right, so just to confirm, I guess, like before you even get into your presentation, I just want to confirm what you just said. So you're saying that all the changes that planning staff have recommended, you've made all those changes as they've recommended. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. We've worked very closely
Okay.
on this application.
Okay, so go ahead. You have 5 minutes, please.
What we are proposing in this, on this application is to sever this lot, which we are proposing 2 lots of equal value, 15.27 meters by 21.20 meters. We evaluate the physical characters of the development, which has been taken into account in the neighborhood context and the proximity to the subject site. The dwelling type, scale, the lot fabric, the street pattern. So if we take a look at the broader context, this area in the official plan is designated neighborhoods. This includes physical characteristics of properties that face the same street as the proposed development in the same block and opposite to the proposal. In my opinion, there's no significant difference between what we are proposing to what exists. Both the zoning bylaw and official plan achieve an assortment of building types, lot sizes, built form, height, mass, scale, density, setbacks as part of the existing and planned context. As you can see from the photos that I provided on pages, I believe, and on, you will see that what we are proposing is what exists in this neighborhood. The area has experienced new development. It includes new, old. We have setbacks in this particular proposal. You'll see on my pages 7 and 8, I have outlined all the variances. We do not have a height variance. We do not have length. We are well below the length variance. We do not have a main wall height. The variances that we do have relate to setbacks, which is very consistent with the neighborhood, as setbacks in this neighborhood range from approximately 0.6 meters to 1.2 meters and 1.5 meters respectively, which is what we are proposing. As you've seen through the reports and read in the reports, planning staff is in support of the consent and the minor variance applications. So is engineering construction services. Transportation is also in support of the applications that are in front of you. And we are also in the understanding that forestry would like to implement condition number 1. That being said, these applications form intensification that meets the 4 tests. It is in keeping with the purpose and intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. It is appropriate and desirable for the area. And I'm open to any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Panel members, questions of the applicant's agent? Seeing no questions? No questions? All right. So thank you, Madam Agent. Now we're going to go into committee. Panel members, discussion. Yes, we have some discussion.
There is no discussion.
No discussion, we have a motion?
I just have a motion if my colleagues are okay with that. Okay, so I'll move into a motion. I have read this application from top to bottom. I'm really satisfied with the changes that the agent made here today to be consistent with planning's expectations. And, you know, I don't have a problem. And I think that the fact that there's no one else also to speak to this application, it makes me feel a lot more favorable that it does meet the 4 tests. So I'm going to put forward a motion to approve the severance of the proposed severance of this application, as well as the parts 1 and 2 of the variances with the changes made by the applicant today that matches the staff report that is of July 10th. So I wouldn't go through the changes unless Deputy Secretary Treasurer requires it. but it is listed? Okay, thank you. So it's the changes that were made by the staff report that were suggested, and I am going to make it subject to engineering's June 13th report, as well as forestry condition number 1. That's my motion.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sankar, motion. And
Sorry, just to clarify, and that included the standard recommended conditions from the planning staff report?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve, subject to conditions, including reports and staff reports. We are looking for a seconder, and I see. Okay. All right, Mr. Kubu has seconded it. And although, unless there's any debate, we're going to go all those in favor. And it is a unanimous approval. Congratulations to the agent and the applicant, and we will move on to the next matter. The next matter is item number 2, and that is 5801 and 5803 Yonge Street and 11 Golden Lion Heights. This is to sever property into 3 lots and to create various easements and rights of way. We have before us a number of reports, and these include an arborist report, an engineering report, 2 reports from engineering, a heritage report, a forestry report, and a staff report. In respect of the application, the retained lands, retail lands, are parts 7, 8, 9, 16, 17, 21, 22, 32, 34, 47, and 48. Those are retail lands. There are easements and rights of way, many to describe, but they are all in the notice. Subject easements amongst all parts 7, 8, 9, 16, 17, 21, 22, 32, 33, 47, and 48. There are easements and rights of way to part 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 20, 31, 33, 49, 50, 51. Conveyed parts, part 25, 28, 29, 30, 52, and 55 are commercial lands. There are commercial parking lands. There are easements and rights of way there for many parts, 25, 28, 29, 30, 52, and 55. Staff are recommending confirmation of payment, municipal number assignment, electronic copies of reference plan, and submission of digital draft and other conditions, and then within 2 years complying with those conditions. So that's a summary of what's going on this application, and we have a number of parties here. We have 2 owners and a main speaker. So why don't we go to the main speaker, which I believe is Ryan Doherty. If you may step forward and then state your name, confirm your name and your address, and then you will have 5 minutes. But also, if you could please identify to the panel if there are any changes you're proposing. Are you there?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm attending virtually today. My name is Ryan Doherty. I am a land use planner with Bousfields, acting on behalf of the owners. My address 3 Church Street, 200 in Toronto.
Thank you. So you're the main speaker, and your client is here. Do you need your, I know they're here, do they want to speak, and what order would you like them to speak if they want to, if they're going to speak? You've got 5 minutes really, so it's up to you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think that they intend to speak, just if there are any specific questions from the committee members that are more ownership related, they are there to answer those questions, but not in terms of our presentation, which will be very brief.
Okay, well that's good. And but like just to confirm, do you have any changes, or are we going with the application that's in front of us?
There are no changes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so before you get going, I'm just going to look at my fellow panel members to see if they need a presentation. There's nobody in opposition. I think they do. There are, well, but it's a complicated, there's a number of things going on here, so, and a number of conditions. So panel members would like to hear from you, so Mr. Doherty, go ahead, you'll have 5 minutes maximum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I mentioned, I'm here speaking on behalf of the owners. This application pertains to AON's M2M Phase 1 development, which is a recently constructed building consisting of 2 towers of 36 and 34 stories on an adjoined podium. The development contains a mix of uses, including residential, retail, office uses, in addition to both residential and commercial parking. The development has already proceeded through a condominium application for the residential portion of the building, and a residential condominium corporation has already been established, in addition to the reciprocal easements between the residential condo and the other building elements for things such as shared facilities and services. So the purpose of this application is to facilitate a stratified severance of the retail, office, and commercial parking components of the building. The purpose of doing so is to provide the owners with the opportunity, should they choose, to sell the different components of the building to different owners or operators in the future. This is a common practice for larger mixed-use projects such as this one. And the consent application would also establish the required reciprocal easements between the various parts to ensure that the building can continue to function appropriately and that access is maintained throughout. I'll just mention again that given that the residential condo is already registered, it does not form part of this application. The areas for the residential condo are shown in green on the R plan. No variances are required to facilitate this consent. We have also received a round of comments, as Mr. Chair has mentioned, from city staff. There are no objections to the applications from staff, to my knowledge. Community planning have shared a list of consent conditions. This is a standard set of conditions, to my understanding, prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. We have no objections with these conditions and will seek to clear them should the committee approve this application. I will leave it there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. As well, there are members from the owner present who can also answer any questions as it relates to ownership matters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Applicant's agent. And I turn to our panel members if there are questions of the presenter. And I see heads shaking, and I take that to mean there are no questions. So let us go into committee. And in our committee, I seek input from our members on comments or motion. Mr. Marziari.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if my colleagues don't have any comment, I can make a motion.
All right.
I think with the applicant's explanation and also documents on the file, I'm comfortable that this application is supportable and meets the board test. So I'd like to make a motion subject to planning condition, which are the consent standard conditions. And I can see engineering and construction has no objection, Metrolinx no concern, Airpa Forestry no concern, Hydro One no concern. So just subject to planning comments. Planning staff comments.
Okay, motion to approve, subject to staff comments by Mr. Marziari. We need a seconder. Mr. Bartolo is seconding it. And any discussion? I see no discussion, and therefore I'm calling the question, and I see hands raised in favor, which is unanimous. Congratulations to the applicant, and we will move on to item number 3.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3 is an application at 2699-2701 Keele Street. And this is the site is rezoned to allow a 28-story mixed-use building with varying heights. Through detailed design, the owner now requires limited and technical zoning relief. We have before us an arborist report. We have previous decisions on the matter. We have a study, a report, and study. We have a transportation report, and we have a number of other documents. This relates to bylaw 569-2013, chapter 900.11.10D and L. It's the 10th story above the maximum gross construction area for each story must not exceed 750. The 10th story at 750 square meters, and the 10th story has a proposed gross floor area of 1112 meters. And the height is 5 stories increased to 6 stories, 7 stories increased to 8 stories, 28 stories increased to 30 stories, 9 increased to 10 stories, 3 increased to 4, and 4 increased to 5. We also have some increases in respect of the footage. Most remain the same, some including the 5 stories and the 28 stories are increased. So that is a summary of this application, and we have here some people to speak. We only have the agent. Are they in person or online?
I'm attending virtually. It's Benjamin Larson.
Thank you.
I'm a partner at Elevate Planning and Project Management.
Sorry, it's a little bit difficult to hear. If you could repeat that and your address, please.
Yes, it's Benjamin Larson. I'm a partner at Elevate Planning and Project Management. Address 15 Gervais Drive, Suite 503, Toronto.
Thank you. Now, before you get going, are there any changes to your application?
There are no changes to the application.
Okay, perfect. All right, so you will have, well, let me just check on the panel members. Panel members, do you want to hear from this? And I see nodding. I see some no's, some yeses. Since I've seen some yeses, I will take it that they do want to hear from you. At least one person does. So, Mr. Agent, go ahead. You will have up to 5 minutes for your presentation.
Sure. No problem. If I could have figure 2 of my presentation on. Figure 2 in the bottom left, we have figure number references. So as this loads up, it's been a logical and orderly process that we've gone through on this site. the site is subject to a comprehensive planning process. We've provided a visual chronology on the screen. What's important to note is the top left, 2020 to 2022, this is the rezoning process. You can see at the top center of the screen is the rendering of the 28-story building. And then at the bottom of the screen in orange, this is the committee of adjustment process. In February 2024, we met with city planning staff, the same ones handling the SPA file. We then proceeded to submit to the C of A in April, and now we're at the hearing in July. And then at the top right of the screen, this is the intention to achieve SPA NOAC later this summer or in the fall. If I could have slide 3, please. Regarding communications, as noted, there's only one communication from the city, it's transportation. They're not commenting. Again, we've met with city staff, including senior and management level staff handling the SPA. There's no issues with these technical changes being sought. Variance, or figure 3, please. This will show the 2 variances that are being sought. Variance 1 relates to height. It does 2 things. One, it resolves a technical error in the zoning height map. It also redoes the story references. And the other thing it does is it allows for 1 additional slender tower floor plate to be added to the project. Minor variance 2 is highly technical, and it's caused by that revised story reference that I mentioned before, but I'll just quickly explain more detail of what the variances are. If I could have figure 7, please. This will show a side-by-side comparison of the elevation views. The left will show the rezoning approval. Figure 7, please. The left will show the rezoning approval. The right shows the proposed refinement. And I want to take your attention to the bottom of the screen. On the left side, it says G upper. This was originally the ground upper floor. And then at the right of the screen, we've changed it to level 2. This is related to code issues. We couldn't keep calling it ground upper for code related reasons. So now it's floor 2, but this created a domino effect on the floors above because now they're technically 1 more story. So while the height didn't change, the story reference did change. This also shows variance 2 related to that tower floor plate limitation. In the middle of the screen, you can see in orange, we've shown how the 10th floor on the left was the lowest floor of the tower. And I put into the zoning bylaw amendment a 750 square meter max to ensure they were slender. But on the right side of the screen, that former 10th floor is now the top floor of the podium due to the story reference revisions. So the 750 floor plate max wrongly applies to that level now. That's highly technical. If I could have slide 8, please. This is regarding the extra height story that's added. This visual shows how it was accommodated. In orange, you can see the floor tower level that's added on the right side of the screen. This is accommodated by the mechanical being reduced in height. You can see at the top, the blue is reduced slightly, and then the tower floor levels below it were all reduced by about 3 inches, and this allowed 1 additional floor to be added into the project. Slide 9, please. That extra floor on the right side of the screen causes a very limited increase to main roof height. Once that slide gets up, figure 9, please. You'll see in red, this is the exceedance, very limited, 1.8 meters, it's about 2%. The green represents what you can do as of right, so we think it's an appropriate change to happen. And also of note is the black dashed line at the top of the screen. That's the all-in height of 97.8 meters. That is maintained through this variance. So in summary, it's my opinion that this meets the 4 test. It's minor, as the height exceedance represents a 2% increase, which is very limited. Considering the underlying zoning approval permission is desirable as it adds 10 or so units into an already comprehensively approved mixed-use development. It maintains the intent of the zoning and the official plan by implementing the same or similar high-rise mixed-use development that's already approved on the site, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on the file.
All right, thank you to the agent for the applicant. Turn to our panel members for questions, if any, and see none. All right, seeing no questions, thank you to the applicant. We will now go into committee. I look to panel members for any discussion, comments, or motions. See, Mr. Bartolo has the floor.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm ready to put forward a motion if we're good to go.
Yes, please.
Having reviewed the file and heard the applicant's explanation here today, I'm satisfied that we meet the 4 tests in this scenario, and I don't see any adverse impacts on the local neighborhood. Therefore, I will put forward a motion to approve this application.
Any conditions on that motion?
I don't believe so.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve, and Mr. Marziari has indicated he is seconding this. And I see people raising their hands already, which I take it to be approval. So the motion is approved unanimously. Congratulations to the applicant, and we will now move on.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Our next application is item number 4. Item number 4 is 2 Champagne Drive and 1107 Finch Avenue West. This application is to continue to allow the existing parking, supply, and ancillary uses on the subject lands as previously approved by the committee in 2021. We have on file a number of documents, and those documents include a counselor letter and a letter of support. Just to summarize what's going on, this is bylaw 7625. We've got something here to continue to permit up to 15,000 square meters of combined gross floor area for retail spaces, personal service shops, and office uses. We also have total parking spaces. It says that it shall not, the bylaw says it shall not exceed an area of 15,000 meters, and there shall be here 450 parking spaces. So why don't I turn it over to the agent for the applicant. If they can come forward, please state the name and address. We also have the counselor who is in attendance who may appear if he so chooses. So, applicant's agent, will you please step forward? I believe virtually, if that's correct, and state your name and address, and also state if there are any changes to this application.
Good morning, committee. It's Jennifer Evela for the applicant. I am a lawyer with Castles Brock and Blackwell LLP and legal counsel to Champagne Center Limited. My address is 40 Temperance Street, Suite 3200 in Toronto. And I can confirm to the committee that there are no changes to the application before it this morning.
Okay, before you get going, I will turn to my panel members. There appears to be no one in opposition to this application. Is there someone in opposition? There is?
Through the chair, we have the counselor online.
I didn't think that counselor was in opposition. I thought they issued a letter in favor. So, I mean, the counselor will have an opportunity to address us, but they may not want to if the panel members, they want
Mr. Chair, the counselor would like to speak.
Well, yeah, everybody gets to speak, and the panel members said they want to hear people speak, so let's go ahead. We'll start with the agent, and we'll take it from there. Everybody gets their chance. And panel has said that they want to hear. So even though there's no opposition, Madam Agent, you have the floor, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. So for the committee's reference, we did file a few slides a couple days ago. However, I'm not intending to turn to those slides this morning, and my submissions are intended to be quite brief on this matter. For the committee's reference, the Champagne Centre is a crucial healthcare provider, not only for the community of North York and the City of Toronto, but the province at large. They provide outpatient services to more than 5,000 patients each week, many of which travel significant distance throughout the province and beyond to receive these services. Specifically, the Champagne Centre is home to several healthcare providers, inclusive of the Polyclinic, which provides a variety of outpatient services, further detailed in our correspondence, through 70 physicians working in a wide variety of practice areas. The North York General Hospital Outpatient and Community Service Centre, Surrey Place, which provides services for those with developmental disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, and visual impairments, as well as there being a Life Labs testing facility on site. Additionally, there are recreational uses, namely arenas that are long-standing in the community, office uses, retail, and personal service uses. We believe that the Champagne Centre is a success story of an eclectic employment area and BIA area. I will refer the committee to the application cover letter submitted by our client, which provides further detail respecting this application. But in summary, the application is seeking to extend the 2 variances previously granted on granted 3 years ago for a period of 3 years. The time period for those variances is actually now set to expire on July 22nd, and therefore it is crucial that these variances be extended to ensure the continuation of those existing uses at the Champagne Centre. I would like to thank Councillor Pasternak and Councillor Perruzza, who authored that letter of support, for submitting correspondence in support of the variances. And as the committee has already noted, there are no letters of objection filed to this application. I will note that we have not received any reports or comments from staff, but I am happy to respond to any questions or comments that staff or the committee may present today. And with that, I thank the committee for its time.
All right, thank you. Panel members, we do have a question from one of our panel members at least.
Hi,
So,
Mr. Chair, it's Ms. Sankar. I do want to ask Ms. Avala, sorry if I'm saying it correctly. You indicated the extension. Was there a specific number of years in mind? I reckon that I was on the previous record of decision-making, myself and another panel member who's here with me today, and that was for 3 years. Were you looking at the same amount of time? Can you share?
Yes, so if the committee is looking to attach a time period this morning, our recommendation would be for a period of 3 years. I can go into detail as to why that 3-year period has now expired on us. I would characterize it as a series of misfortunate events outside of our client's control, but I am anticipating that a further 3-year extension would be sufficient.
all right, is that satisfactory to you, Ms. Sankar?
Yes, I didn't want to think of a condition. I just wanted to know if that was something you were seeking, or was it something a little bit more permanent, because it is a fixed asset within the area. So meaning not putting, condition on that for you.
Understood, and I appreciate the question. So at this time, we are seeking the 3-year temporary variance, and the reason for that being that since 2021, when our client last appeared before the Committee of Adjustment, a zoning bylaw amendment application was actually filed with the City of Toronto to, among other things, address the need for these minor variances and to make the variances and other matters permanent, essentially due to a concurrent OLT proceeding with a irregularly delayed decision, I will call it that. that took about 14 months to issue. City staff have not made a decision on that application to date, despite it being filed at the end of 2021. And for that reason, I am expecting that 3 years is sufficient, and that the zoning bylaw amendment is the proper way in ensuring that these variances become permanent in the future.
Okay, thank
Other
you.
questions? Other panel members? All right. Okay, thank you to the applicant's agent, and we also have the counselor who has asked to speak. If the counselor is present and wishes to speak, we are here to listen.
Good morning, committee members. It's James Pasternak, Councillor, Ward 6, York Centre, and it is an honor to attend today to support this application. This site is a vital medical and community hub. I have been to it many times. It offers a number of, as you've heard, life-saving medical services. It fills a crucial gap in our medical system. It came to the rescue when the Branson Urgent Care Center was closed, and North York General Hospital took space in this facility to make sure that those medical services were offered to the community. You know, I've been to it, as I mentioned, many times. I've seen karate tournaments. I've been skating. It's not only a medical facility, it's a sports and athletic facility. And I've always gotten a parking spot. There's never been a problem getting a parking spot. And just remember that most of the visitors are there for doctor's appointments. So they're not there all day and all night. They're there for doctor's appointments. So the current parking situation is adequate. Moreover, as we've learned in recent days from extreme weather events, we're moving away from a lot of creation of more hard surfaces in the city. We're working away from more parking because of the flooding it does to homes and businesses, and we're looking at other modes of transportation. So I would say that we not only have to give relief for a period of three years, but if the committee has some latitude, I would ask for a permanent relief. As I mentioned, this is a site that is a crucial community hub, not only for York Centre, but for the city. It is saving lives and keeping people healthy and fit hundreds of times a day. It deserves our support. And currently, it's been functioning very well over the years, replacing an abandoned warehouse. And this is exactly what we need in the city of Toronto. So I know one request has been a period of 3 years. If it could be permanent, that would be great, but I'll leave it up to you. So once again, I lend my full support to this application, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Counselor. Panel members, questions for the counselor? No? All right. So that concludes the presentations in favor of the application. We now go into committee. Ms. Sankar is indicating a desire to comment or motion.
Yeah, if my colleagues are not wanting to discuss, I'm ready for a motion. I did go out and visit this site, and I did see exactly what Councillor Pasternak had indicated, in that it seemed to be quite adequate amount of parking spaces. I did note the eclectic employment area and sort of mixed use, as well as some of what seemed to be crucial medical services, having a bit of a walkabout. And so with that, I'm willing to approve this application as is.
All right, so we have a motion to approve without any conditions, and I noticed Mr. Kubu is seconding this. So I turn to our members to see, and I see hands raised, so that is all in favor, and the motion is carried to approve unanimously. Congratulations. to the applicant. And we will now move on to item number 5. And item number 5 is 169 Teddington Park Avenue. This is to construct a new dwelling. This has before us an arborist report, 3 letters of support. The requested variances first deals with proposed floor space index at 0.49 times the lot area. And the second deals with the proposed pillar at the end of the front porch and the encroachment at 2.49 meters into the required front yard setback. So we have in person a person to address this item. We'll take your name and your address first. And then I'd like to know, well, so give us your name, give us your address. I'll ask you a couple of questions and we'll keep going.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Mahir Manius, I'm the agent for the owner, 1 Teakwood Grove, Toronto, M3B 2H9.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of this application, are you making any changes to this application?
There are no changes, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
so there are no changes. Now, before you get going, I'm just going to look. There are no people here in opposition, so I turn to my fellow members to see if they really want to hear from you. You still have your 5 minutes if you need it, but I've taken the reading of the room saying you don't need to use it if you don't want to use it. So go ahead.
I'll keep it short and sweet. So we're proposing a 2-story dwelling to replace the existing 2-story house and 2-story front yard coach house. We are requesting an FSI variance and opposed, as you mentioned, Mr. Chair. The FSI is well in range of what's been approved on the street. The 0.35, as I had submitted before at the committee, is a control mechanism for developments in neighborhoods like these to be vetted by committee. Most of the properties are well above that, and we're in the medium of what's been approved in the past. The architectural feature, which is actually opposed, is a bit of a bizarre variance. We didn't want to make a fuss out of it, given the minor nature. But the bylaw does allow a 2.5 meter encroachment into the front yard with a covered porch, which you would think would be supported by columns. I think the confusion is the zoning examiner looked at it as an architectural feature instead of a column. But as I said, it's minor, and we didn't want to make an issue out of it. And happy to answer any questions.
All right. Panel members, questions of the applicant? I see there are none, so thank you to the applicant's agent, and we now move into committee, and I look to my fellow members to see if someone is interested in perhaps bringing a motion. And I see Mr. Marzieri's hand is up, which I take it to be a motion to approve. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And
For you,
then
Mr. Chair, I think it's a very straightforward application, just 2 variances that are straightforward. So I'd like to make a motion, and I don't see any staff comment on it, so with no condition. To approve, sorry. To approve with no condition.
Thank you. So motion to approve, no conditions. I saw Mr. Bartolo raising his hand before. Is that to seconded? I take it that is. I look to my members and all in favor. It is unanimous. Congratulations to the applicant. Your motion the motion is approved, the application is approved, and we will now move on to item 6. Thank you. So item 6 concerns, just pull it up here. Item 6 is 135 MUNRO Boulevard, and this is a proposal for a new 2nd-story floor addition, 2 front and rear additions, interior alterations, new covered front porch, and a rear deck. There are there are 5 requested variances, proposed lot coverage, proposed front yard setback, proposed building length, proposed east side yard setback, proposed height. Now, we also have before us a forestry report, a previous decision, and a staff report. I'm going to summarize quickly the staff report, because the staff report notes a recommendation to refuse the variance number 4 for the proposed east side yard setback, and notes a previous recommended refusal of that as well. And there is a previous decision in that matter. Now, we don't have anybody in opposition. We do have the agent here somewhere. Where is that agent? Are they virtually?
Mr. Chair, I will be doing it virtually.
Okay, so if you could please state your name. Now, I'm going to, even before we get going, I'm just looking at since we already have a negative staff report on one, I'm taking it that at least there's one of our panel members that wants to hear, even though there's nobody in opposition. I believe it's incumbent that I want to hear him, so you'll have to make your presentation, even though there's nobody in opposition. There's negative staff report. So state your name, please, Mr. Agent, and your address, and then you will have 5 minutes, but also state if you have made any changes to your application. Okay, so please go ahead, state your name and address.
Jonathan Metzkowski, 301 Keewatin Avenue. We have not made any changes to the application. If we could first bring up the staff report. I had fairly extensive conversations with planning regarding the application, and frankly, I'm quite confused.
Right, okay.
I'm quite confused from a planning perspective. Some of the comments that are made, if we could scroll down to the bottom of the first page, when they specifically address the side yard setback, planning notes that the intent of regulating side yard setbacks is to ensure that dwellings and structures have sufficient separation from side yard setbacks and side lot lines and abutting buildings for building maintenance, rear yard access, and maintain a consistent built form character in the neighborhood. It goes on to say that the proposed east yard setback is not consistent with existing single detached dwellings found within the neighborhood and raises privacy concerns with the east side neighbor. Now, I want to address that in two parts. One is the privacy concern to the east side yard, to the east neighbor. If we could bring up my support material, I would note that this is now the second time the neighbor to the east has had an opportunity to join and comment on the proposal. And this is, again, the second time they have not appeared. On the left of the screen, I had a screenshot of the original proposal that shows essentially 5 windows that face that east neighbor. The revised proposal before you today has 2 windows. So in terms of the concern of privacy and overlook, we've eliminated that by taking the 2 rear windows on the second floor away, as well as 1 rear window on the first floor. So in my opinion, in terms of privacy and overlook, that concern has been mitigated. To deal with the idea of the consistent built form within a character, if we could now go down to slide number 3, please. The proposal before you does not alter the character of the dwelling. The dwelling exists as a 0.97, one more slide, please. The dwelling exists as a 0.97 meter side yard setback. There is no change to the east wall proposed. This is essentially, yes, correct, the filling in of the void behind the garage. So in terms of the variance for both the building length as well as the side yard setback, there is no expansion of the wall to the south, which is creating the building length variance, or the wall to the east. It is to be built in line. So in terms of, again, going back to the comment of rear yard access, building maintenance, there is no alteration to what is there at the front now. The addition that is being proposed before you today is not visible from the street. And again, this is a flanking property. This is merely a rear addition. Now, we are proposing a second story addition, which relates to some of the other variances. Again, there is no alteration. And again, I want to go back to the fact that this is the second time that adjacent neighbor had an opportunity to come and object. This is the second time they have not come. So in terms of the planning report, again, I'm a little bit confused as to the objection of maintaining a side yard setback through a small, modest rear addition. If we could go to the next page. There was also a comment of it doesn't maintain the consistent form within the neighborhood. Along this stretch of MUNRO, there are 15 dwellings that exist on the south. Of those 15 dwellings, 9 of them have a similar rear wall that is consistent without a cut-in portion, as you can see on the screen. So there's only 6 of them that would be similar to the way this dwelling exists today. So if we go back to what actually prevails along this portion of MUNRO, the addition and the filling in of that rear property brings it more in line with the rear yards of the dwellings along this portion. In terms of the front yard setback variance, there is no reduction to it. It is being built in line with the existing north wall. It is just a variance again because we are putting a second story. I would also lastly note the zoning bylaw regulates the side yard setbacks based upon the minimum required lot frontage. In this instance, it speaks to where the frontage is 18 meters to where the minimum lot frontage is 18 meters to 24 meters, 1.8 meters is required. Along this stretch of MUNRO, this is the narrowest lot. If we would take how it is interpreted, if it were to be with the frontage of 15.29 meters, the required side yard setback would be 1.2 meters, not 1.88. So again, the side yard setback relates merely and specifically to what is the permitted lot frontage range.
Your time's up.
In this instance, it would be 1.2 meters.
Mr. Applicant, your
and I have
time's
more,
up.
but that's
You
it.
gotta stop. So, I turn to my panel members. We've heard from the applicant. I presume there may be a question or two from our members. Is there? No? No questions at all from any panel members. All right. We do not have anybody else in attendance. We only have the applicant. So we're going to go into committee. And I look to my fellow members, starting with Mr. Bartolo.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, if there's no comments, I'm ready to make a motion.
Are there comments or questions? We have Mr. Bartolo with a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In hearing the evidence and studying the drawings here, it looks like we're just dealing with an existing condition. I don't see any reason to deny this application despite what may have happened in the past. Therefore, I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application and make it just subject to the conditions of the urban forestry memo attached.
Okay, so we have a motion. It's subject to urban forestry, and I see Ms. Sankar with her hand up. Ms. Sankar is seconding that motion. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Turn to my panel members. See no discussion. I will call the question. Those in favor? And it is approved. So congratulations to the applicant. The matter is approved, and we will move on to item number 7. And item number 7 is 64 Glen Echo Road. This is to construct a new 2-story dwelling with a rear deck. And we have a number of people here I see on our list. On our file, we have a number of documents, and these include an arborist report, 2 forestry reports, letter of support, 2 files of objection, one which includes 4 objections, one which includes 5 objections, and one of the objectors is the Teddington Park Residents Association. So the applicant has agreed to install privacy screens on both sides of the rear deck. Planning staff are of the opinion that the installation, this is just in relation to the staff report. Planning staff feel that the privacy screens help mitigate privacy impacts. So they have had, they say that should the committee choose, they recommend certain conditions there. Let me just see if there's anything else before we get rolling on this. Just let me pull up my file, and it is just to see the supporting documents. If there's anything else in there I should identify, because we've got a lot of documents here. Hang on a second. Public notice. Yeah, hang on a second here. The public notice included certain things such as the rear deck. So in terms of variances, we got a rear deck on the west side. Distance, we've got west main wall height, we've got east main wall height. A number of platforms is 2. Proposed floor space index 1.7 times lot area. Proposed landing in the front yard encroaches 2.76 meters. The proposed area of the rear deck at the second story is 15.04 square meters. Okay, so that summarizes what's going on here. And now let's turn to the applicant's agent. If they are present online, they can state their name and address, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Chair. My name is Mehdi Hosseini. I'm the agent on behalf of the owner and the designer of this project. My address is 201 Steeles Avenue East, Toronto, Ontario.
All right. So there's also a person. So I have a list here. I mean, I turn to staff. There's one. So I've got names of people that are here, but for staff, there's a second person on my list. It's not indicating whether they are with the applicant. Are they? It's a duplicate? Okay. Thank you. Perfect. All right. So Mr. Applicant's agent, you've stated your name, you've stated your address. Would you please identify if there are any changes to this application before you go forward? And then you'll have 5 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chair. After the discussion with the planning staff, we revised the drawing and the changes has been done to minor variance number 5. So instead of 1.07 FSI in total, we have 0.97 FSI, which is including 0.73 for the first and second floors.
Okay, so maybe if you can go a little slower so that we can just get this down, because if there is, okay, so for 5, you are doing
we're reducing the FSI to 0.97 instead of 1.07.
0.97 on the 5th. Okay, thank you. And any others?
No.
No. Okay, so 5 is being reduced to 0.97. All right. So now, will you please, I guess, have we taken some time off of him? Maybe we should, well, anyway, you've got 5 minutes, so please go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chair. We have requested for 7 minor variances here, and as you look at the numbers here, you will see that most of these variances are triggered because of the definition of the basement that's being recently added to the zoning. So nowadays they measure the basement, they're considering the basement if the midpoint of the distance between the slab, the basement, to the underside of the joist of the ceiling above is below the average grade. And as you know that we have a lot of problems with the sewage system in city of Toronto, the owner doesn't want to take the basement lower, and he already have more than 10 feet in the basement with these drawings, so he doesn't want to lower the basement to prevent those issues for later on. And because of that, we have almost 5 of this minor variances triggered by that issue with the definition of basement. As an example, number 1, which is asking for the platform distance to the property line. If this was considered a rear deck and the basement was considered as a basement and the first floor as a first floor, we didn't have this minor variance. And also number 7, the same related minor variance, because it's asking for the platform. We don't have a platform, we have a rear deck, but because the basement is considered to be a first floor, as based on the definition in the zoning bylaw, then this is considered to be a platform. And after that, it just triggered the square footage of the platform as well. Same thing with number 6. It's because the basement is considered as a first floor, we got that minor variance triggered as well. Otherwise, it's just a landing for the porch in the front. We propose that in order to reduce the number of steps that we have, in order to make it safer for travel for elderly people. And also number 4, I already talked about that, so that's the same kind of issue. So instead of 1 platform in the front, we have 2, because it's 1 landing added. And the main thing is the FSI. And as I mentioned, the FSI, after we talked to the to the planning department, we reduced our FSI, and now we have 0.73 for the first and second floor, and in total 0.97, which is including the basement. So in total, in 3 floors, we have 0.97 FSI. And if we're looking at this, the lot size and the lot depth is small. And unfortunately, the zoning bylaw is applied for the whole area. So if you're looking at this area, the street on the north side, they have lots with 70 feet, 60 feet, and 80 feet frontage. And the lots in front of the Gleneco on the other side, they all have more than 50 feet frontage with more depth. So that's why this 0.35 FSI works for all of those properties, and only for this area on Gleneco that they have a smaller lot. It's not feasible to build a new house with that FSI. That's why we're requesting that. And also regarding the wall height, we're just asking for 30 centimeter of height of the wall in order to keep the ceiling flat on the second floor. We had the discussion with the forestry, and we saw the report. We already discussed it, and after the committee of adjustment, we're gonna go through the forestry department process, and whatever decisions they make, we will approve them and we accept it. And we already submitted the application to the forestry department. Regarding the neighbors, we already had discussions with them, and also for the residents associations, we already sent an email request, explain all the points, and we requested to have a discussion with them. We didn't get any response from them, but from some of the neighbors, we had discussions yesterday, and we talked to them and we explained all of these points that we have.
So we got your.
Hopefully they're gonna accept.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Mr.
Mr.
Chair. If there's any
Time is
question,
up,
I will.
but, we might have some questions possibly. I look to my panel members and I see no questions. All right, so you'll have a chance to speak to the forthcoming submissions in a moment, but we do have on my list here 4 neighbors who wish to address us. Is that correct? Are they here? Are they available? They're in person? One in person, and 1 is in person, and 3 are online? Is that right? So I would just, well, please come to the podium. Just for the benefit of the neighbors, when we get multiple neighbors speaking, we try to ask you to please, in the interest of both the importance of your presentations and the ability for our panel members to follow you, try to say things that are different. If you agree with something that was already said, you can say you agree with it. You can even say why. You can say more if you want, but it's not going to be helpful. So try to limit your presentations to those that follow the first one to things that are unique as much as possible, and that way you'll make best use of your time and the panel members' time. Okay, so first person to speak, first neighbor to speak, please state your name and your address at the podium.
Can we suggest the order in which we'd like to speak?
Well, you can suggest the order. I hope you've gotten that clear in advance, but if not, our staff, I believe, will respect it. Is something that you've all agreed on as neighbors, that you want a certain order? Well, okay, well, why don't you state your name first?
Okay.
State your address first, and then state the order you would like. I'm assuming the others agree to it. And our staff will try to, they're dealing with a system that I don't see. They'll try to do it, but I can't speak for them because I don't see their system.
I get it. Okay.
Okay? So why don't you state your name, your address, and then you can state the order, but you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay. My name's Lynna Dobbin, and I own 19 Doncliffe Drive. There's a red light. Is it?
Okay, yeah, you may want to put it close to you so that we can hear you well.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but sometimes even like you may notice that I have the microphone close to me because I have a soft voice. You have a soft voice. Speak as close to the microphone as you can.
Got it. My name is Lynna Dobbin. I live at 19 Doncliffe Drive. I'm the owner. And my rear yard faces the rear yard of 64 Glen Echo Road.
Okay. So also you said you wanted to speak to the order. Our staff will listen to you. They'll try, but I can't speak for them because I don't see their system. Why don't you just tell us what the order is that you'd like your fellow residents to speak, and they'll try to respect that. So who's next?
Yeah, I understand. So first is Anna Balbos. She lives at 62.
So she's second after you. All right. You don't have to say her name.
No, she would like to go first.
Oh, she wants to go before you.
Yeah, if that's possible. I understand if
typically we have the person who's here speak first. But,
okay. I mean,
but
whatever you like.
Staff say they can put her on first, so we'll do that. So first will be Anna, and then who's second?
And then I would go second.
Okay.
My neighbor Diana Billis, who lives at 21 Doncliffe Drive, could go third, and then our neighbor Brian Boyd, who lives at 60 Teddington Park, would go last.
Is there a ratepayers association speaking here as well?
I don't believe so. They submitted a letter, the Teddington Park ratepayers, but I don't think they're speaking.
Okay, so then I'll take it back to staff to put Anna Balbos on, if you're able to do that, and then we'll start the 5 minutes with her. Okay, thank you.
morning. Audible?
Okay, yes, you are on, so please state your name, state your address, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Anna Babos. I reside at 62 Glen Echo. I'm just the closest neighbor to the 64. So my concerns were discussed many times already with the owner and with the representative. The house gonna be so huge that's gonna be blocking completely the sunlight and any natural light for the house, starting from the first point to the end of my backyard. There will be completely blocked walls, like nothing else. We will be losing all our, life in the backyard. We will have zero life in our backyard. I have 2 children who enjoyed so far a backyard life. They have a playground with the walls. I will have no lights coming into my house, to my garden. The trees will be dying for sure. They suggested at first to remove the trees, and I think they still in that plan, which they are in my backyard. We have magnolia tree and another tree that we I don't know how I'm gonna accept that they will be removed. And if they block it with a big, huge house, they will die definitely. With the huge patio, I don't consider it as a deck at all because it's very high that it's going to be at the level of my bedrooms. It's just overlooking my house directly, and we're just exposed at all scenes. It's very concerning, and I see like it's an invasion of privacy, to be honest. In addition to that, they are killing everything natural in our backyard, and we will have no light coming to our dining room, to our living room, to our bedrooms, to the backyard. We're basically cutting half our living, the size we're living in our house. We're basically crossing out a usage of the backyard. I did not submit any pictures because the owner came to my house, and I actually invited him to the backyard, and I showed him how it's gonna look like, and he agreed, and he stated that you are right. They will be that high, and they will be that long. He saw and acknowledged that it's gonna block completely my house or where I reside, and he asked me anyway to sign the letter, and I rejected. And when we discussed yesterday with the representative, he did not actually provided any intention to change the plan and any intention to save our trees. He was just speaking about the plan as it is, with no changes. He just was presenting the current plans. Just to mention again about the light, because the house is going to be on my east and the sun shines from the east. So I'm basically in the dark for all, year around.
Okay.
I think I covered most of my concerns. I will leave the rest to my neighbors. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you have more things to say, then you can say them. You still have a few more seconds, but I'm presuming that you had come to a conclusion. Is that correct?
The conclusion is we need to put the height of the house a little bit shorter. We need it shorter, not a little bit, way shorter. The deck needs to be, or the patio needs to be at the house level. It's too high. Okay. And the walls needs to be shorter for sure. It needs to be aligned with the other houses at the same level.
Okay. So does that conclude your comments, madam?
And to save my trees, Absolutely nobody touches our trees.
Okay, thank you.
That's complete. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I turn to my panel members and I look if there are any questions from panel members to the resident. Okay, thank you, madam. Now we will turn it over to the resident who is here in person. If you could please state your name again, your address, and then you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Lynna Dobbin. I own 19 Doncliffe Drive, which is directly to the north of 64 Glen Echo Road. My backyard abuts the backyard of 64. I have two main concerns. One is privacy and one is trees. I object to the variances requested to increase the floor space index to 0.97. I'm using the number from the revised agreement, I think, with city staff. And I object to the variance requested to increase the size of the elevated deck to 15.09 square meters. Taken together, the raised basement and elevated deck essentially create a 3-story dwelling at the rear of the proposed development, with a second floor viewing platform that would overlook my backyard and my rear main floor windows. With respect to the trees, I object to the development on the basis that it requires the destruction of 4 mature protected trees at 64 Glen Echo and 62 Glen Echo. The mature trees in our neighborhood provide privacy, shade, and absorb water. I believe Toronto Forestry has submitted a report to the committee that clearly indicates that quite a large new home could be built without the need to destroy protected trees. With respect to the trees on my property and on Doncliffe Drive for my neighbor, a house with such a large FSI will also have the potential to destroy the root systems of large mature cedars on my property, which are not protected under the law because their diameter is smaller than 30 centimeters. The applicant has only agreed in a letter to my neighbor at 21 Doncliffe, so I know I'm not a party to that, to protect trees on my property to the extent required by law. The neighbors attending this hearing virtually and myself met with the applicant yesterday, and he was not willing to address our privacy concerns or our concerns about the trees. His main argument was that the lot was relatively small, so to build the house he has designed, it is necessary to impinge on the privacy of the neighbors. In conclusion, the proposal has a larger proposed FSI of 0.97 than any previous new build on the street, Glen Echo Road. There are a number of previous new builds ranging from 0.7 to 0.86. And the development is completely outside the traditional norms of the neighborhood and the new builds on the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Turn to our panel members. Panel members, question for the resident? No questions. So, thank you. And we will turn to the next resident, which the request was that the next one be Diana Billis. Is that possible, staff? Yes, good.
Hello.
Madam, you don't need to stay at the podium anymore. You can sit down. Thank you. All right. So, madam, please state your name, state your address, and then you will have 5 minutes.
Hello, committee. My name is Diana Billis. I live at 21 Doncliffe Drive. My property backs onto 64 Glen Echo at the northeast corner. To save time, as requested, I won't get into depth on many things, as my neighbor who just spoke, Lynna Dobbin, covers off all of the same issues I have with the new build. I will go a little bit further into talking about the cedar hedge, particularly mine, which I show in my email to the committee. I know that Lynna has a cedar hedge as well on their property. Well, I understand that my cedars do not qualify for tree protection. It makes sense for both property owners, myself and the new build, to protect my cedar hedge. It's very important with respect to privacy, especially from my perspective, looking at the back elevation of the house. Proposed house is basically a 3-story build. These cedar hedges are very important for my privacy, and I would think that it would be considered important to the new build owners as well. So it would make sense to me to have some sort of protection for the cedar hedges, both myself and my neighbors, Lynna Dobbin, to help maintain the privacy, which is one of the biggest concerns. If any of these cedar trees were to die at this stage, given their mature height, the root balls are so big that one could not find a root ball and tree equivalent of what's there to replace if one were to die. So I know that, again, that it's not considered a city tree and does not qualify for tree protection, but I do request that the build plan include tree protection at the back of the lot. Thank you for your time.
All right, Madam, thank you. Panel members, question for the resident. Thank you, Madam. Turn to staff. Final resident, if you could please put them forward. All right, we've got an
Yes, hello, it's Brian Boyd.
Thank you, and your address, please?
Yes, hello. My name is Brian Boyd. I'm at 60 Teddington Park Avenue, and the back of my property, which is also where my driveway is located, and the major access point to my property is directly across from 60, the developer. The main points that I wish to bring before the committee are the FSI and the developer's assertions that the basement be excluded from this calculation. If we look to the elevations, which will primarily guide this discussion, I think you'll note that there's a garage door at the level of the basement, and there are ample windows at the level of the basement, which has specifically been designed, obviously, to make the living space at the rear of the basement level occupiable, and a major part of the design here to allow the occupant and the developer to build something that is substantially bigger than would otherwise be the case if they excluded that. In other words, the basement should be part of the FSI calculation and not excluded. I'd further evidence this by, if you refer to the rear elevation, the choice of the platform, which comes off of the first floor, is 8 feet above grade. If the developer had intended for the basement to be a true basement, there would be no need for that platform, and it would be at grade, and a number of the privacy concerns of Anna and others in the neighborhood would obviously have been mitigated. If we look at the front elevation, the large platform that's required to get up to the first floor projects to approximately 3 feet from the property line. This is about 3 times closer to the front property line than other houses along the street, which are more typically 9 feet from the property line. So in essence, we have a house with an FSI that's very large because of a basement, and based on how they're planning to build this house, it's really a 3-story house, and the basement should not be excluded. I also would like the committee to understand that we do oppose the removal of the city tree that is located on the front property. You'll note in your file that there is a report from Forestry recommending the committee defer this application so that they can consult with the developer over how the trees are to be protected and whether or not that front tree should even be permitted to be removed. That report also points out that had the developer consulted with forestry, an alternative design would have been possible, that it would have preserved the city tree and a number of the other mature trees the residents have previously discussed. With that, I will take any questions that you have, and I thank you for your time this morning.
All right, thank you, sir. Panel members, questions for the resident? I see no questions from the panel, and now we will return to the applicant. The applicant's agent will have a moment to talk about what the residents have said in rebuttal, but only to address those comments of the residents, not to provide new information other than in relation to what has been said by the residents.
Yes, Mr. Chair and the members of committee. As regarding to the trees and application for the forestry, as I mentioned before, we have applied to the forestry department and we had a discussion with them already. And after this meeting, if we get the approval, we have to go through the process with the forestry department, no matter what. And in regards to the comments from the two neighbors, 19 Duncliffe and 21 Duncliffe Drive, I think it's unfair to request everybody else build a smaller house while you have a bigger property yourself in the back. And by law, you can have up to like 5,000 square feet for your properties. And if somebody in the backyard of your house requesting for 2,400 square feet, you say, oh, they're making a huge and really big house. It's not a really huge house. The lot is so small, so the numbers showing itself bigger. There is a development as per their letter before 7880 Glen Echo that they have been developed before, 30 Glen Echo, and those numbers, if you're looking at the FSI that they have, it's similar to our FSI or even higher. We are keeping the FSI for the first and second floor as 0.73, I believe. So it's so much shorter, so much smaller than 30 Glen Echo that they had 79% of the FSI, and 80 and 78 Glen Echo that they had 86%. And also in regards to the wall height that the neighbor on the east that mentioning, I'm going to say if we have 30 centimeters lower on the wall height and we still have the roof, that's not going to change anything on the size and the mass of the building because we don't ask for the maximum height of the building. And also in regards to the other neighbor that's talking about the front yard, we don't have any minor variances regarding the front yard, and not even about the depth of the house and building length. So if there is any question from the committee members, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you. So panel members, any final questions? Yes, we have Mr. Booth.
Mr. Agent, I'd just like to find out how deep were you able to speak with the neighbors about their concern? They have concerns about privacy, tree protection. To what extent were you able to speak with them?
So we had discussions yesterday, and also we responded to the email of the neighbor at 19 Duncliffe that we and I think it was 21 Duncliffe, that we sent an email and said if there is anything that the owner can do to protect those trees, even though the forestry doesn't request that, the owner willing to do that to make sure that those trees are going to be staying healthy during construction, because they like to have that privacy for their house as well. And in regards to the talk to the neighbors, we had looking for all the neighbors to talk to them. We could just find this 4 neighbors, and we talked to them yesterday. And regarding to the residents associations, we responded to their email. We requested to meet them or talk to them, but we didn't get any response from them.
Follow-up question, Mr. Kaboo, or is that satisfactory answer to your question? Other panel members? No questions. In which case, thank you to the applicant's agent and to the residents for your presentations. We will now go into committee, and I look to my fellow panel members for comments on the application or motions on the application. If anybody would like to say something on it. Don't see anybody saying anything or bringing a motion on anything. Do we have comments or motions? Sure, why don't we discuss that? We could always defer it. That's a possible motion.
Should be putting on my mic. I'm sorry, I'm talking in here. It's Member Sankar. I'm just, worried about what forestry had indicated. I mean, I hear very clearly the explanations provided by the applicant, but, seeing that there is a deferral request, seeing that there's been so much feedback from the residents who are really upset about this, it makes me really take much more of a closer look at this. And I'm not so convinced that it needs to be denied, but I am leaning towards a deferral so that they're able to work either with the neighbors or through forestry around this. But I just want to see what my colleagues say, if they have the similar concerns or that doesn't bother them.
Mr. Kabu is...
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think I was quite quiet because I had a similar concern with my colleague. At this point, I'm still not convinced that they have a meaningful conversation with the neighbors.
Yeah.
In addition to some of the documents we have here, I think I'm leaning toward deferring and making a decision now.
So why don't I pipe in here? So we've got two people who are talking about deferral. I don't get a vote, and I'm okay with that. But why don't I just tell people my thoughts on this? We come to a hearing, we hear people, they get a chance to defer. The applicant had a chance to defer it. If they wanted to, they could have deferred it. They went forward with it. We can defer it. We can still decide to defer it, and that's fine. My preference in these situations, and maybe you can call me a hardliner, is to refuse. Because he came with an application, he put in time, he could have pulled it, he could have deferred it, he could have talked to the residents, he could have done all those things, and he didn't. He could have talked to forestry, he could have done that. Since he came forward, he's bringing this. Now, I could have talked to him at the start, but he knew what he's a professional, he knew what the forestry said. In my view, I don't have enough here, I would refuse. And let him deal with it. Let him deal with forestry, let him appeal if he wants. That's what I would do. But I don't get a vote. It's up to you if you want to do that. I hear two people saying they want to defer, but I'm giving you these thoughts because if I was on the panel instead of the chair, I would probably have brought a motion to refuse, and maybe it would have been approved by the panel. Maybe it would have not been approved. Maybe we end up with deferral. I'm just giving you a hypothetical. But I like to push these hearings to the furthest that we can, if that's possible. I'm also willing to defer things, but in this case, I don't think there's enough, and I would refuse it. But what do you think?
I think I'm of the opposite mind to everybody else. I would push forward with it. I don't really have a huge issue with the application as it is. FSI seems to be a bit large numerically, but there's no building length, there's no building depth requirements. We're only 30 centimeters over on height. I don't think it's an outrageously sized house. Frankly, the applicant could build a house that's just as long, just as deep, without ever coming to this committee. most of the comments around the trees are about private trees that aren't protected or at the rear of the site. And while I wouldn't want to see them damaged, they do look quite nice. I have to admit, we have no jurisdiction over them at all, right? So I would push forward and get this one approved, but I don't think it should be refused. So if everybody's, I'll favor a deferral just to keep the application alive because I think it has merits. But that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Marizieri?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Bartolo. I think we're dealing with the variances in front of us, and I understand the FSI is large, but neighbors' concern are mainly about height and length and depth of the building. That there's no significant variance with the height. It's just 30 centimeter for the wall heights, and building depth and length are compliant. So my only concern is urban forestry comment and memo. So I agree with my colleague if we can defer it.
Okay, so it seems like we kind of got a consensus around the deferral, even though there's a couple that are sort of leaning in favor, a couple against it, but it seems like there's a consensus. I don't get a vote anyway unless you're tied. You've heard what my inclination is. I think I'm hearing that there's sort of a consensus to deferral unless the people on the deferral side have changed their minds. So do we want to go back to Ms. Sankar? Do you want to put a motion forward?
Well, I think after hearing some of the explanations, because I was sort of on the edge, I mean, I really wouldn't want to have them go through another deferral, lay this out, and then regardless, we will be putting this subject to forestry. So I'm kind of considering strongly what my colleagues are also saying, because I was a bit on the fence for that. I mean, as of right, they're able to build a certain, length and depth and, all of that, and it would still, be of concern. But as of right, they can do that. So,
Okay, so you don't want to make a motion, but maybe one on the other side, but I'll go in the order of the people who've spoken. So I'll go back to Mr. Kubu. Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to make, given the discussions we have had, and then the concerns from from forestry, I would like to make a motion to defer this application.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor for a deferral.
Sorry, can I just clarify the reason? Just so if it's deferred, so the applicant knows what's needed in order to come back.
To defer the application, to give the applicant some time to work with forestry and maybe the neighbors to be able to bring back an application which meets most of the requirements.
All right. So the motion is to defer, to have time to consult with forestry and the residents. I summarized, but you take it, staff have the wording there. We need a seconder for the motion. I can either go back to Ms. Kubu, Mr. Kubu, Ms. Sankar, but I think you already had your chance, so let's go to the other side. On the deferral motion, is that satisfactory to anyone on the other side to second that motion?
I would be happy to second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so Mr. Marizieri has seconded the motion. We have a motion for deferral on the floor, and we need to have either more debate, but I think that may be behind us, or a vote. So let's put it to a vote. All those in favor of the deferral? And I see 4 hands, so it's unanimous on the deferral motion. And I wanted to thank the applicant's agent for your presentation today, and for the neighbors for their presentation. The matter is deferred. Please meet, discuss, because the matter will come back, and hopefully it will come back in a way that reaches consensus amongst all parties as it did amongst the panel members today. Thank you. Yes, good idea. Let us take a break. Let's take a 10-minute break now, and we will return at, well, that's to 12:15. Okay? Thank you. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Can everyone hear me? So we're back from our break, and we are on item number 8. So item number 8 is 90 WYNFORD Drive, is a proposal to convert the first 3 floors of an existing office building to self-storage. Floors 3 to 5 will remain as office. We have before us a number of documents, including a transportation opinion letter and 2 transportation reports. This has 3 variances. Use of public storage warehouse is not permitted in this zone. Surface parking, a total of 117 spaces, and a portion of the proposed parking spaces are located on Part 1, which is a separate lot. The transportation has no objections, but has conditions. All right, we have the applicant agent somewhere here in person, I think. No? On the line? Where is the applicant's agent? Online? All right.
I'm online.
Okay, so please state your name, state your address, state if there are any changes to your application, and then you will have 5 minutes, but first state your name and address and changes, and then briefly stop, and then we'll hear from you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. My name is Morgan Dundas. I'm a senior planner at Sejeki Planning, and my address is 227 Pape Avenue.
Any changes to your application?
No changes.
All right. Panel members, seeing there's nobody here in opposition. There were some conditions, although no objection from transport. Do panel members want to still hear from this? Okay, so there is an appreciation for a small presentation. Back to you, Mr. Agent, for the applicant. You'll have 5 minutes or less if you choose.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to keep this brief. I'll just ask that you pull up my presentation slide deck that I submitted with the application. So the subject site contains 2 parts, which you can see there. Part 1 is the existing surface parking lot located on the north side of Sakura Way. And the second part is an existing office building of 5 stories. I will note, obviously landmarks of note, the site is located just north of the Aga Khan Museum. And as I mentioned previously, the proposal itself pertains to the existing 5-story office building. From a policy perspective, the site is designated as general employment under the City of Toronto official plan. The subject site is zoned MO, or Industrial Office Business Park, under the former North York Bylaw 7625. The proposal contemplates repurposing 3 floors of the existing office building to self-storage uses. This would include the basement level, ground floor, and second floor. The remaining floors will be retained as office and used as the headquarters for access storage for our clients who I'm representing today. In addition to the minor modification, in addition to this is a minor modification to the west rear wall of the existing office building to provide an additional loading bay. If you scroll down, you'll see that minor modification. The proposal will utilize the existing vacant office building, which has not been used since 2020 or since COVID first became an issue. We are seeking approval of 3 required variances today. Those include the first to permit the self-storage on those 3 floors. And the second and third mainly just pertain to existing parking on site. As I noted previously, the site is designated as general employment, and under that designation, self-storage is a permitted use. This variance in this application would simply just bring the bylaw into compliance with the City of Toronto official plan. In relation to the two parking variances, I will note that as part of the application, a transportation letter was prepared by CF Crozier Engineers and dated July 8th, 2024. As noted in their report, the proposal reduces the number of parking spaces on site by only 2 parking spaces. We have also had a great deal of consultation with transportation services on this application, and I would like to turn your attention to the revised transportation memo dated July 15th, 2024. This memo analyzes our proposed variances as they relate to the parking and loading on site, and conclude that they have no objections to our application. I will note that the transportation report was revised simply to reflect conditions, and those conditions have been revised so that, and we have to submit a site plan control application following this minor variance process. So some of those conditions have now been passed on to the site plan control stage, and that was the reason for the revised report. To conclude, it is my opinion and that of staff that the application is minor in nature, is desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land. It meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the general intent and purpose of the official plan.
All right, thank you. Panel members, question to the applicant's agent? No questions? All right. In that case, since there's no questions, thank you to the agent, and we will go into committee, and I seek input from my fellow members. And I saw a head shake from Ms. Sankar. Does that mean, did I read your head shake correctly, or did I see a head shake? Did you see a head shake?
I'm just ready to make a motion.
I'm looking for someone who, I see, okay, Mr. Marziar, you're ready for a motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I think it's a straightforward application. The applicant is seeking 3 variances. One is for the use, and I don't see any comment from the planning staff, and also there are 2 variances for parkings that are transportation related. That there is a transportation report on the file, which I want to make a motion to approve tied to transportation report conditions.
All right, thank you. Motion to approve subject to conditions, and Mr. Kubu has his hand raised in seconding, and I see people jumping to approve this. I believe all hands raised are in favor, and therefore it is approved unanimously. Congratulations with the conditions as outlined. Congratulations to the applicant. And now we move to item number 9. And item number 9 is 45 Glenvale Boulevard. It's to construct a rear wood cabana attached to an existing washroom structure on the existing concrete slab. We have before us a number of documents, including an arborist report and a letter of objection. The variance sought is to permit maximum lot coverage of 35% of the lot area. The permitted maximum lot coverage is 35% of the lot area. So that is the purpose of this application. All right, so let us hear, it looks like we've got the agent, the owner, the neighbor.
Good afternoon.
So who's this, the agent? Just state your name.
No, this is the homeowner, Robert Fernandez.
Okay, is your agent going to speak for you, or you're speaking, or are you going to divide it up between the two? How are you doing this?
No, I'm going to be speaking for myself.
Okay, so state your name, state your address, and go ahead. So the agent isn't here then, is that right?
No.
Because we've got 3.
My name is Robert Fernandez. I'm the homeowner.
got it. And your address?
45 Glenvale Boulevard.
All right. Are there any changes to your application, or are you going with the application as it stands?
As it stands.
Okay. You've got 5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity today to seek approval on our minor variance regarding the change to maximum permitted lot coverage. I would like to reiterate that the change is actually only 3.89%, and the changes are not coming to anything on the building structure, but rather to a cabana in the rear. We already have an existing permit that's outstanding and we're working on. And so this increase to 42% is over the existing approval of 38%. So I'd like some points I'd like to speak to. So in terms of coverage of 42%, I have researched the COA filings for Leaside. I've recorded a list of 27 properties in the Leaside neighborhood that have been approved for at least 40% lot coverage. There are 16 of the 27 that have the same or greater lot coverage as we have and are requesting today of 42%. I have 2 examples that are greater than 50% and 6 that are greater than 45%. All were approved at COA, and the key point here is that we are not introducing any new precedent to the Leaside neighborhood, especially with the addition of 3.89% being for an accessory structure only and not a change to the house structure. Point 2, we are below the accessory structure limit of 5%. For our lot, 5% square foot coverage is 213.5 square feet. The cabana as today is 166 square feet, which is below that limit. Point 3, we're still maintaining softscape requirements. We will not be affecting the original softscape ratios as we are building on the cabana on the pre-approved slab on grade. All of the other elements of softscape will be maintained, including the pool and various plantings throughout. Point 4, full-size garden suites are now being permitted in the City of Toronto, much larger structures being allowed in the backyard. Several laneway units have been already built in Leaside, as well as garden suites. We didn't obviously pursue that. 1,300 square foot property size can be built as a garden suite. We're asking for just the approval for 3.8% coverage for a shaded structure for our family to enjoy our backyard, below the limit of an accessory structure of 5%. And, put in our post-COVID world, if it's taught us anything, it's that the value of the spaces that we share with our family and friends are critical to our mental health and enjoyment. We are continuing to maintain the character of the neighborhood, and the cabana will be no exception. We are very cognizant of the aesthetic of the neighborhood that we're in, and the build that we're doing today will be the same. And as a final point, we have a south-facing lot, so the sun overhead is there from morning all the way through evening. It's 10 to 15 degrees hotter in the backyard than it is in the front. And so we're just looking for an opportunity to build a shade structure that we can just have to enjoy with our family. Initially, we were planning to put a pergola on that site, but the shade provided therein would have been insufficient. I welcome any questions from the committee at this point. Thank you for allowing me this time.
So thank you to the owner for his presentation. Excuse me for having my mic off. To our panel, are there any questions to the owner? All right. So our next presenter is a resident. Are they online? Yes. So
yes, I'm here.
Would you please state your name and your address?
Sure. Mark Vanderlinden, 47 Glenvale Boulevard, the house directly next door to the applicants. Thank you for hearing my comments. I've submitted a letter. I'll briefly summarize that letter, although this will be largely a rehash of that. Look, we're having massive drainage issues already, and that's before new structures finish. I had a video that I was unable to share with you of runoff just a couple days ago during the big storm. flooding my house, it's flooded my basement. I'm concerned that a large structure on the property gets more lot coverage than, you know, what's allowed and what was applied for in the initial application is going to exacerbate those problems. Aesthetically, I don't want to look at a massive cabana in my yard that's going to be taller than my privacy fence. Their house is already blocking a ton of sun in my yard. It's massive. I would like sunlight in my yard. And I'd note this is 20% above what's acceptable. These laws are in place for a reason. Me, it feels excessive. And the last note I would make is that this leaves essentially no space in the yard. There's a pool, there's a washroom, there's a cabana, there's a huge house taking up the rest, and a tiny little patch for grass or what a normal backyard is. I disagree with the characterization that both this build and the cabana are in keeping with the neighborhood or the character of our neighborhood, and I hope you decline this variance. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Neighbor. Panel members, questions for the neighbor? No questions. The applicant now has a chance to rebut the neighbor, but your rebuttal should focus solely on the comments made by the neighbor, nothing other than in relation to what the neighbor has said. So you will have a moment to address those, please, Mr. Owner.
Thank you. So the neighbor in question has raised a few points. He mentioned that the variance is 20% over the legal amount. That's not true. The amount is 35%, so it's actually only 7% over that. And on top of that, we had already been approved for 38% in our first committee of adjustment. This is required. This is asking for 3.89%. Just to add the cabana. That's point one. Point two, the neighbor has said that our house is blocking his sunlight. As I mentioned, we're a south-facing lot, so if you look at the map that you've got there, if you imagine the sun is basically directly overhead, over our backyard in its entirety. There's actually no way that the cabana will cause any shade impact on their backyard, given that the sun is directly overhead. And the cabana is it is 21 feet away from his property line and 40 feet away at least from his house. So the issue of shade is not legitimate. He has mentioned softscape and that the fact that we'll be affecting softscape. He's also incorrect in that aspect, in that softscape, the pool is actually considered softscape by the City of Toronto. So we are still maintaining all of our softscape requirements, which keeps the pool and all the additional softscape areas in there. He also mentioned the fact that we're not putting any grass. Those on the committee and also the neighbors should be aware that grass is considered a monoculture species. And when you actually implement a great deal of grass, you reduce the diversification of plant life. So in his yard, he's got front and backyard that's all grass. He's actually contributing further to a reduced diversification of the Canadian naturescape than I am. I think that speaks to all his points. Most of them, unfortunately, are not founded in fact, but I'm thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Owner. Panel members, no further questions. I take it from the owner to the owner. All right, so now let us go into committee, and I seek input from the panel on either a motion or a comment. Mr. Marzieri, Ms. Sankar, we are looking at each other, pointing at each other, and
right
somebody, one of you is going to have to speak. You are too polite.
Being very polite today, but Mr. Chair, I think through you, I'm ready for a motion. And in terms of hearing this, I could totally understand the fears and the concerns and that were brought forward by the neighbor. But I do see that it is just one variance. As of right, he's able to still build that cabana. It is a little bit more on the FSI, but I am taking consideration that it is quite a distance away from the neighboring property. No shade studies have been done, but I do believe in the direction that it's facing and where the sun rises and sets. I don't think that that should be too much of a concern. And indeed, there is a correct theory in knowing that the pool itself is considered soft landscaping. So with all of those considerations and trying to be empathetic as well to the neighbor and the concerns, as of right, he still could build this. And so I'll put forward a motion to approve this application as is.
Thank you. So we do have a motion on the floor to approve, and I need a seconder, Mr. Kaboo. Motion on the floor. Unless there's any debate, let's have a vote on the motion. All in favor, and it is unanimous. Congratulations to the owner. And we will move on to the next matter, which is item number 10. Okay. So item number 10, as I pull it up on my screen, is 261 Finch Avenue East. This is a proposal to permit a pharmacy and medical walk-in clinic. We have on file 5 letters of support. We have on file 6 letters of objection. Amongst other things, we have a staff report. We have supporting material and so forth. And it is simply an application for a proposed pharmacy medical walk-in clinic where one would otherwise not be permitted. We have a person at the podium who I am presuming is the agent for the applicant. Is that correct?
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Pedro Posan, the owner of
you're the owner.
261 Finch Avenue East.
So you are the owner. So would you please, so do you have an agent here, or are you just doing the presentation yourself?
I'm doing it myself.
Okay. So just state your name.
Pedro Posan, 261 Finch Avenue East.
Okay, so you're 261, and maybe just slow, so does everybody have it? Because I'm not sure, is he listed on the, oh, I see. So he's already told staff, okay, you're a write-in candidate here. So I see your name. Got it. Okay, so we got your name, we got your address, and before you start, are you making any changes to this application, or is it as is?
There are just two things. One is that we have a letter of support from the church that unfortunately has not been submitted because of a misspelling from the church side. And the other thing is that out of those support letters, you counted 5. One of them is a petition which contains 10.
Okay, so thanks for that clarification. But in terms of your application,
there is no changes.
There's no changes. All right, so please go ahead with your presentation. You'll have 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
I'm presuming, since there's going to be, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, all. So what we're proposing today is basically in response to the community's demands, we're putting forward a proposal for a medical and pharmacy clinic. The nearest one to our community is situated on Finch East, closer to the YONGE Street. However, it operates within limited inventory. It's a very small pharmacy and has limited hours. They operate from 10 a.m. to 1:45 p.m. And on some days, they operate until 3 p.m., which makes it totaling to 3 to 4 hours a day. We understand that most of our community members work a typical job, which is 9 to 5, and require a facility that can accommodate longer operating hours. In the light of this, we have taken notes from the community needs, and we will be extending our operating hours as well as offering free delivery of medicine to alleviate the traffic and cater to the community's needs. The property changes that are going to happen are upon reviewing the property photos, which has been enclosed to the application. It is evident that the garage situated on the right side is a later addition to the original structure. Our plan involves removing the garage and constructing a driveway leading to the backyard where ample parking spaces will be available, including 2 in the front for the individuals with limited mobilities. In terms of objections, if I can take your attention to page 10 of the proposal. Page 10 of the proposal basically shows where the proposed project has been situated. And if you look at it, that's basically the interactive map from City of Toronto on the municipality site. That it shows, page 10 is a little bit down, if you can scroll down, please, which basically shows where the property is, and that's the gray area. That's not even the residential area. And what's happening is that we have taken into account all the concerns raised, despite the fact that they all originate from one neighbor, which is not even adjacent to us. We have taken into consideration all the property values that they're concerned. On the other hand, everyone residing near the proposed project along Finch Avenue East supports this initiative. Nevertheless, we are confident that the 5 individuals who have expressed objections, along with the 16 supporters and 1 church, will all benefit from the services in this facility that will provide in the future. We are committed to delivering high quality and easily accessible services, which have been proven essential during challenging times such as COVID-19 pandemic. This proposed project will be similar to what we have experienced today during the committee's presentations, such as like 1107 Finch Avenue West. Having a medical clinic has been deemed essential due to committee demand and needs. The final statement that I have is we have the authorization to establish a public or a private school according to the zoning issued list of permitted businesses and uses by the city, and without even having to undergo a complex procedure to acquire permits. Nevertheless, we have chosen to take the longer route by listening to the community's needs and going through the permit process to secure required approvals. This decision aims to bring a positive change for our community, ultimately benefiting us all in the long run. And lastly, I'd like to point your attention to Carol Zhang's email to the city. She's both a senior city planner and owner of the adjacent property to the proposed project, which has written a positive and in favor email for this project. Quote unquote, it is desirable development to use for the same reasons above. Furthermore, council recently allowed for increased residential development along major streets, and the access to the medical services within walkable distance will be benefits to the new residents. It is in keeping the general intent of the official plan, while not in land use. It is in line with the other priorities such as intensification, diversity of uses, and etc. I have reached out to all of my neighbors on the Finch lines, 253, 255, 257, 259, and 263.
10 seconds.
And they are all within the support letters, which are on the Finch line, supporting in project. Even the one backs to mine, where none of the objections actually are backing into my property.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I just clarify? I heard the applicant say something about a city planner. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes. So she is basically.
What's her name?
Carol Zhang. If I said cities planner, I'm actually made a mistake. She's an urban planner.
Okay. You really need to make that clarification. Otherwise, we have
Sorry
a
about
potential conflict. To be clear, and I want to be fair to you, I'm not sure if you know that there is a staff report recommending refusal. We can put that up.
Yes, absolutely. I'm aware of that.
Okay.
And this was referred to that.
Okay. Do we have questions from the panel members to the applicant? We do, Mr. Kaboo.
Yes, sir. Thanks for your presentation. I was wondering if you've taken time to review the staff report that we have in front of us and then on the screen now, which clearly recommends a refusal of your application because it does not meet most of the requirement.
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yes, I was asking if you've had time to review the staff report, which is in front of us and on the screen, and which asked this committee to refuse the application because it does not meet most of the requirements.
So we're working with an engineering firm on this one, and the engineering firm has basically provided us with, as you can see, the site plan is there, the zoning is there, the survey is there. They're making sure everything is being designed by the code to facilitate this facility, and everything is going to be with spec in support and with the help of the city's staff.
So you would like us to make a decision before you have that discussion back with city regarding this requirement?
No, we have had that conversation with the city's staff before. We have started with a preliminary zoning review, and that preliminary zoning review has declared that you can establish a school, for instance, or a place of worship, a lot of other uses, but not a medical clinic. If you would like to do so, you have to take this to the Committee of Adjustment. So it was based on the recommendation that we have received from city's staff.
Mr. Chair, I just want to be clear that the committee understands, because city staff is being mentioned a number of times. I want to be clear what the report is saying. It sounds like there's sort of an intention that city supports this.
No. So the city staff report that you see is a different report than what we have received from your zoning department. The preliminary zoning review that we have done was with Nida Zeus, and she's in basically charge of that report.
To be clear, the zoning examiner doesn't issue a report. It issues a zoning review. It highlights what doesn't conform to applicable bylaw. That's all it does. It does no way say it supports it. It says you're not in conformity, so one of your options is to come to committee.
That is correct.
I don't have a feeling either way. I just want to be clear that the messaging is consistent with how the city works.
Absolutely. So the preliminary zoning review has declared that you have this list of permitted use, which again, I described them, but medical clinic is not one of them. I don't know if I have answered your question or not.
Yes, you answered my question, please.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I also have a question from the applicant. So you mentioned you're going to remove the existing garage and make a way to the back and create a parking at the back, correct?
That is correct.
Do you have any drawing for that, or it's just so if we approve this application and you don't do that, where are the customers are supposed to park?
No, so we have discussed that as part of the application. I have my agent here as well, which is the engineering firm. We have not provided the proposed future site plan because it was not part of the application, unfortunately. Like, it was not part of the application checklist, otherwise we would have. But this is by the city's code. It needs to have a driveway with plenty of parking spaces in the back. The property size is almost like 50 to 170, which can accommodate parkings in the back of the backyard. We have similar projects like that to 56 Finch, which is one of the people that have supported this. He's a doctor, he's a dentist. He has exact same property like us that has exact same model. The driveway has been removed and plenty of parking spaces have been provided in the back.
I have a question from the staff. Did this application go through transportation review?
They were circulated, and if they had a comment, they would provide it. Yeah, so to my knowledge, they were circulated for review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have any other questions from panel members to the applicant? Seeing none, then that concludes your presentation, but you will have a chance to rebut the opponent's presentation, but simply to address their presentation. All right?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will hear from area residents. Do we have area residents in attendance? Yes, all right. So I see unless you've decided which order you want to speak in, well, why don't you just come up?
My name is Arman Mansourian.
One at a time, of course, and yes, your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Arman Mansourian. I'm at 256 Olive Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you will have up to 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
Go ahead.
okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to raise my objections to this proposal. My name is Arman Mansourian. I've lived at 256 Olive Avenue for the last 25 years. I've known the area very well. It's a very nice, quiet neighborhood, very safe. And my house and 261 Finch Avenue East, they both are in the zone R6. Zone R6 is designated as a residential neighborhood. No provisions are made for commercial or medical structures to be mixed with residential dwellings. Therefore, this proposal does not represent a minor variance. It represents a very major variance. If you look at the structures that have been built in Zone R6 in the last 30 years, they have all been for residential dwellings. If they are inside the zone, they were all high-quality houses. If they were on Finch Avenue East, on the south side, which belongs to R6, they were all high-quality townhouses. This is very important. It addresses the important issue of housing shortage in Toronto. The residential neighborhoods like R6, which have already decided they want to stay residential, they have to stay residential. Plots of land like this have got to be exploited to their utmost potential to address our shortcoming of houses in the Toronto neighborhood. We should not just give them away for commercial or medical structures. The applicant refers to some businesses that are already in existence on Finch Avenue East. He fails to state that all these businesses are to the north of Finch Avenue East. And the north side of Finch Avenue East is a totally different zoning system. They allow for medical and commercial structures to be mixed with residential structures. And that is why the houses that are on the north side of Finch Avenue East, they are substantially lower in value than the houses that are in R6. The R6 neighborhood is extremely high quality residential neighborhood, and it has to stay like that. This is neighborhoods like R6 that are making Toronto great. We don't want to just mix residential with commercial and medical structures to mess up this sort of neighborhoods. If this applicant wants to go ahead with this sort of proposal, he should buy a lot in adjacent zones that do allow for medical and commercial structures to be mixed with residential dwellings, and put up his pharmacy and walk-in clinic there. He shouldn't try to deface the neighborhood that have already decided they want to stay purely residential. In addition, we all know how long it takes to get your turn at a walk-in clinic. You have to wait hours to get your turn to come. Where are these people going to park? they cannot park on that small lot. They all have to park on adjacent streets like Estelle Avenue and Olive Avenue and increase the already existing congestion problems that we have on those streets. There's a large public school that's located at 277 Finch Avenue East. Come in the morning or afternoon, you'll see a large number of cars parked on Estelle and Olive Avenue. They are all trying to pick up their children from the school. The city has already noticed this problem. They have put up notices, 30 kilometer speed limit. Another set of notices, beware, there are children crossing the street with their parents. We don't want to compound this problem by having another medical pharmacy at the side of the street. We are going to increase the probability of accident involving children. And not only that,
Well,
we are going to deface a very important neighborhood.
Time is up now.
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you. Panel members, question of the resident? No question? All right. Thank you. So we have another resident who is here to speak as well. Would you please state your name?
Hello,
and
my
your
name
address?
is Ara Papazian, and I live at 260 Olive Avenue, which abuts property in question.
Yeah, just, I mean, maybe state your name a little bit slower.
Okay, Ara, and last name Papazian.
Oh, right, perfect. And,
260 Olive.
Great. So go ahead, you've got 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So, my name is Ara Papazian. I represent myself and a number of residential neighbors who could not be here today given work, language issues, literacy issues, and some of my neighbors are out of the country. I'm here to say that me and my neighbors oppose this application. We do not view it as a minor variance. The application suggests a significant change of use to the property. I'm also here to say that my neighbors and I are in support of development, but believe in this location residential development is the only acceptable development. We welcome residential development. In fact, our city and its residents need this. I'm a 50 years plus resident of Willowdale. I do not think this site is appropriate for commercial development. City Councilor Lily Cheng, David Sitt, Director, Community Planning Willowdale, and City Planner Robert Degrisevich of RD Land Plan have all made submissions to this file calling for the refusal of this application. Please review their submitted letters. I'm here today as an expert in a field which relates to this application to authorize a medical center, a walk-in medical center, and a pharmacy at a residential home. You see, I am a pharmacist, and I graduated from the Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Toronto, 33 years ago. My license number is 109185. And out of those 33 years in pharmacy, I have spent 30 years of them as a pharmacy owner. I own Apex Compounding Pharmacy at Yonge and Eglinton. My accreditation number is 8714.
So just before you keep going, I just want to make a point. So you're introducing a document that's purporting to be an expert's document? Is that what you're trying to do?
Forgive me, I'll just say
is
I
the
have
expert here?
I don't know what your requirements are for expert or non-expert. Let me just retract that and say I'm familiar with the operations.
But you're reading somebody else's report, right?
This is my report.
Oh, this is your report?
I'm the pharmacist and I'm the pharmacy
Oh, you're a
owner.
pharmacist. You're producing. You're presenting yourself as an expert. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Time okay? Very good. Okay. I'm very familiar with the operations of a pharmacy and a medical center, and we'll detail them to you so that you may see what type of traffic such an operation generates and the negative impact it will have on our neighborhood. As a pharmacy owner, I can say that the role of a pharmacy in such a medical center operation is to pick up any and all costs for the practicing physicians: rent, heating, electricity, property taxes, maintenance and repairs, and even the cost of a receptionist are all the pharmacy's financial responsibility. This expense is done for prescription traffic and for the free drug samples the physicians will give the pharmacy. The College of Physicians and Surgeons recommends that a physician sees 4 patients an hour. Every patient gets 15 minutes. We have all seen this. On an average 9-hour shift, a physician will see 36 patients at the very least. Some specialties will see more. One physician, however, will not be able to cover the costs of the operation proposed. You need at least 4 physicians on site to break even. Please do the math. 4 physicians times 36 patient visits per day comes out to 144 patient visits per day on the bare minimum side. That's well over 700 patient visits per week. Where is the parking to support this? 144 patient visits a day is nothing to sneeze at. 261 Finch Avenue East cannot accommodate the traffic. There will be tremendous overflow of vehicles onto the neighborhood streets. We already have Finch Avenue Public School, 2 structures over, which generates significant parking overflow issues at least twice a day. It concerns me that the applicant seeks business opportunities in our residential neighborhood and shunts the burden of parking onto our peaceful neighbors. There are plenty of vacant physician offices at the medical buildings at Yonge and Finch and at Bayview and Comer. The physicians should consider these properly zoned facilities. In closing, I'd like to add that as an abutting neighbor and as a pharmacist, I know that you have to be a pharmacist to own a pharmacy, and you have to be a physician to own a medical clinic. The applicant is neither. He cannot operate such a facility, and that is why I'm concerned. The applicant has purchased this property at the peak of the market in 2022. I suspect, since he cannot operate the facility he's seeking the application for, I'm concerned that he wishes to bundle this package with new zoning in order to quickly sell it and recoup the loss he sustained given current market conditions. This application has not addressed significant operational hurdles. As such, I believe it will have a negative impact on our neighborhood. Respectfully, I do not believe this change in use of the property rests under the umbrella of a minor variance, my humble opinion. I think this application should be rejected by this body, and I would appreciate your support further to this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just stay at the podium in case there's questions. Are there questions from panel members? All right, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So no, you don't get to, okay, fine. I just see, I see motion. Yeah, that's fine. You're both finished. Thank you. Now we go back to the applicant. You get a chance to rebut the presentations of the residents, but your comments should be directed solely towards those comments that they already made.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Pedro Pozan here again. Before I start, I just want to clarify that both objections are coming from relatives. They are related to each other. And so if I may start addressing the first objection, which was Mr. Armand. He said he's been living there for the past 25 years. That is not correct. He has purchased the property in 2007. That makes it 17 years. He has mentioned that the properties beside me are all residentials. That is not correct as well. I have a commercial property right beside myself. It's a travel agency that has actually got their committee of adjustment back in 2010 approved, and he's been operating since then. On page 10 of the proposal, it shows another false statement by Mr. Armand that he says that north side of the Finch are all different zoning. That is not correct. If you zoom out on this one, please and thank you. Sorry, zoom in, my bad. Beautiful. So that white line that you see, which this is City of Toronto interactive map. It's not mine. That white line, which only is basically subjecting my property and both north and south of Finch properties, and not any property on the Olive side, which is all the objections are coming from. It's a totally different zoning. This goes back to previous zoning of City of Toronto, not the current one. That's why everybody on the Finch line, which is a main street, it has a different type of behavior, zoning, and etc. And again, the yellow part, which all the Olive properties are on it, is a different shade there. To the second objections, he said, my business plan is 4 physicians. That is not true. We're going to have only 1 physician and 1 pharmacy. We can't even afford more than that. And that's more than enough for the community to have 1 physician and 1 pharmacy. And that will not amplify a lot of traffic. Again, in my proposal, I mentioned that patients are actually receiving not quality patient care. So that's what we're going to actually do, and it's going to be different for us. We have a retirement house owned and operated by City of Toronto, less than 5 minutes from my property. And I've been talking to them as well. I have not got the chance to get a letter from them, but they have a lot of elderly people living there, which they can benefit from our services as well. In terms of parking issue, again, we're going to have plenty of parkings. The garage is going to go. We have to, and 2 disabled spots is going to be in the front, and a lot of parking is going to be in the back. But based on the permitted uses that I have from the city, which should be there as part of the preliminary zoning review, the school is one of them, and the school is going to require more parking lots, which we're not going to actually go through. We're going for something that can help the community, not actually be a burden on the community.
All right, thank you. Now, panel members, question?
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify, this came through by way of waiver, so it was a self-declared variance.
Well, let's just, any panel members have any questions to the, no questions to the applicant? I guess before we go into committee, maybe you could clarify, Mr. Secretary Treasurer.
I have a question from the staff. So, sorry, if it's a zoning waiver, so it means it didn't go through a zoning review. So if there is a parking variance, there is no transportation review of this application. Because
We circulated the application.
There's no variance.
Likely,
indicated by
yeah,
the
likely.
Zoning examiner. Yeah. Okay.
Do the panel members have questions to the Secretary Treasurer? We're not in committee yet, so I want to, I guess we're finished with, so we don't need to hear from the residents or the applicant unless we have questions for the applicant. Does anybody have questions for the applicant? Because he's still at the podium. Okay, so he can sit down. You can, I'll sit down, and we're done with all the submissions, except the Secretary Treasurer said something, and I believe that the panel members have heard what they need. But is there anybody that needs to ask a question to the Secretary Treasurer before we go into committee? All right, so let's go into committee. And now we have to make a decision. We have to have a discussion, and I open it to somebody to start the ball rolling. And I saw Ms. Sankar with a
So I
head
could
shake.
start the ball rolling and to share with my colleagues, because I did see my other colleague was going in the direction of parking. My concern is that I think that what this gentleman is doing is altruistic. It's very good for the community. I understand that there is a need. There's quite, a lack of that type of service, I think, in the area. And I do know that Finch itself does have quite a bit of buildings on the front-facing portion. However, that being said, I am conflicted by the fact that staff has not given an approval of this, and they would be the experts that I would draw upon to say what they think about this. I also note that this is not a minor variance, it's a major one. When you are changing the zoning of anything, that's huge. I'm also, persuaded a bit more by the members from the public and the area coming in to talk about what that environment is and describing it, because sometimes the character of a neighborhood is not an expansive field. It could be actually just one street. And that's where they're coming from to protect it. And it doesn't seem to be the character of that neighborhood. So with all of that, and knowing that this hasn't passed through the checks and balances that's needed and that sort of discussion with city staff, I'm not feeling too positive about making this go through. So I'd like to hear from my panel members.
You'd like to hear from panel members, or you want to make a motion? You want to hear from them. You don't want to make a motion. Okay, that's. You could make a motion. Well, they can still talk about your motion if somebody. typically I allow debate on the motion, so I know you were sort of itching for, you were almost at a motion
Yeah,
stage.
okay,
If you
so
want to
I
make a
can
motion, you
a
can.
motion because, I mean, given everything that I've sort of explained, I really don't believe it meets the 4 tests, and that's the litmus test that I've got to use in order to feel completely fine with making this go through. So I'm going to put forward a motion to refuse this application.
Okay, so we've got a motion to refuse. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Marziari is seconded.
Yeah, I
Now,
second that.
do you want to speak to why you seconded?
Yes, actually, with the evidences that I have in front of myself, I can support this application. I think it has to be more studied, and I wish to see like more detailed plans about parkings. And since I heard that it's just a zoning waiver, I think it hasn't gone through complete review by the staff, so I cannot support this application.
Okay, so we've got a motion, we got a seconder. There are 2 people who haven't spoken. You are welcome to speak, or if you choose not to speak, we can put it forward to a vote. Let's put it to a vote then. All those in favor of the motion to refuse, and it is refused unanimously. That leaves the last item for our morning, which is item number 11. So let me just pull that up on my screen here. Item number 11 is at 83 Sheldrake Boulevard. This is to construct a new detached 3-story dwelling. We have a number of documents on file. We have an arborist report, we have a forestry report, we have 2 letters of support, we have 3 letters of objection. We have a previous decision on file. We have a staff report indicating some concerns. We have, a number, I'll summarize them quickly. Proposed cabana is distance from the east side lot line. Proposed canopy distance from the east side lot line. Proposed height of the building, proposed height of the east side exterior main wall, and front yard setbacks, east yard setbacks, eaves, chimney, parking spaces, building depth, window projection, front canopy, and platform. We do have here a one person, I believe. There is no one opposing this before us, but we do have an agent, and I believe the agent is online. Do we have the agent online? Hello?
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay.
Joe
No,
Hoffman.
I'm
I'm a partner at
presuming from
Goodman's
the,
LLP.
I'm presuming, well, first state your name and address again, please.
My name's Joe Hoffman. I'm a partner at Goodman's LLP. I'm here on behalf of the owner, and my address is 333 Bay Street, Toronto, Suite 3400.
Okay, that's good. Is there any changes to your application before you get going?
Sir, there's 2 changes to the application, and I should just quickly note, on the record, there's actually 7 letters of support and 2 letters of opposition. One of the neighbors who wrote in opposition spoke to our client and then later wrote to the committee in support. So there is on the record 7 letters of support and 2 letters of opposition. And so through those discussions with neighbors, we've made 2 revisions to the project. The projecting chimney in the east side yard setback has been removed, and so variance number 8 has been eliminated.
All right, so variance number 8 is eliminated. Any others eliminated?
And then with respect to variance number 10, the depth permission that's being sought has been reduced significantly. Instead of 29.01 meters, we're now requesting 24.43. And these changes are reflected in revised plans that were sent to the committee on July 8th.
All right, okay, so there we go. I'm presuming everybody wants to hear from you, given we've got a negative staff report, even though there's nobody here in present in objection. So why don't you go ahead and have your 5 minutes, please?
Thank you, sir. So I'm here on behalf of Sebastian and Beth. They're the homeowners at 83 Sheldrake Boulevard. This property has been their family home for some time, with all 3 of their children attending local schools in the area. They love the area, want to continue to live in the area, and through this application, they're seeking permission for a new home to allow for more room for their family and eventually a live-in parent. It's with this context, having established roots in the area, have Sebastian and Beth hired Richard Wengel, a prominent architect in Toronto, that has come up with a beautiful and high-quality design that retains all existing trees on the property. Sebastian and Beth has also spent considerable time reaching out to their most immediate neighbors. They have received the support of 79 and 87 Sheldrake Boulevard, which are the immediate neighbors abutting the property to the east and west, along with 5 other property owners, all of which are listed in our letter that we sent to the committee in support of the application. There are a number of variances before the committee, but they can generally be grouped into 3 categories: east side yard setback, height, and depth. And as you'll see, context matters, and a lot of thought and consideration has gone into the project to arrive at variances that are appropriate. I'm going to speak to each 3 categories now. With respect to the east side yard setback, 4 of the 12 variances relate to the east side yard setback, and it's important to note that what the application is proposing to do, which is to mimic the existing condition. If you go to page 3 of the presentation materials, you'll see the new house on this figure. You'll also see there's a green line that shows where the existing house is compared to where the proposed house is. And what's being proposed is a house that is almost exactly where the existing building stands. Again, this is the context plan, but if we could scroll to page 3 of the presentation materials, I think it's the page next, just below. What's notable here, thank you. Yeah, so you'll see on the east side yard setback, the proposed house is layered exactly where the existing house is. And you'll see this is appropriate because there's generous separation distances between buildings, appropriate streetscape, and that's because there's laneways on each side of the property. With respect to height, the height is in keeping with the height of buildings on the street. If you go to page 4, the next page in the presentation materials, there's a blue line showing the permitted height to the top of roof compared to what's being proposed. And this, in my respectful submission, is a minor increase over the as of right permission. As you'll see, only a small portion at the front of the house that incorporates Edwardian-style architecture into the proposal to beautify the proposal in relation to the street is 11.25 meters. The height of the home reduces to 10.64 beyond that. The height variance is also only within the as-of-right depth permission. You'll see beyond the 7 meters, the building drops to 1 story, and that's intentional. On the 3rd floor, there's also no east or west-facing windows, ensuring there's no privacy or overlook concerns. And if you go to page 6 of the presentation materials, you'll see the street is characterized by homes of a similar height and taller. Just 4 doors down is a condominium building of much greater height than what's being proposed, and this contributes to the character of the street and the appropriateness of the small increase in height being sought by this proposal. We've also reviewed a number of decisions. We made a research request of variances within 500 meters of the property, and I can confirm that there are a number of examples where you have both top of roof height and a main wall height equal to or greater than what's being proposed here. And if the committee has any questions for me after my submissions, I'm happy to point those examples out with more specificity. With respect to the depth, this is an incredibly deep lot. If you go to the context plan, you'll see it's 265 feet long. The depth variance of 24.43 meters should be viewed with this lens. The portion of the building that exceeds the as-of-right depth permission is only 1 story tall. This is not a situation where you're going to have all 3 stories being pushed to the rear of the property. And that 1 story portion has been thoughtfully masked. On the east side, the 1 story portion is adjacent to an existing garage. You can see that garage on this drawing, and that garage actually extends deeper than the proposed home. There are no east-facing windows on the 1 story proportion, and to the west, the 1 story portion of the building has been pushed 2.38 meters from the west property line. This is a contextually appropriate depth. You'll see 65 and 71 Sheldrake just to the west will have deeper buildings than what's being proposed here. And because of the curvature of the street at 103 Sheldrake and beyond to the east, all of those homes will have lots just as or deeper than what's being proposed.
Okay, your time is up.
Members of the committee,
Your time is up,
if if I could just have the indulgence for 20 more seconds, because there's a condition that I'd suggest be imposed. I apologize. I'll be very quick. I just think it's important for the committee to hear.
All right, you can address that condition within 20 seconds and nothing else, please.
I'll be very quick. I acknowledge that planning's issued a report. It doesn't speak to the site-specific considerations and the thoughtful design that's gone into the proposal. It's 2 paragraphs long, but to ensure the site-specific conditions are secured, my client is agreeable for the committee to impose a condition where the proposal shall be constructed substantially in accordance with the site plan and east elevation drawings prepared by Richard Wangel's architect, dated July 5th, 2024. And this will ensure that thoughtful considerations regarding height, depth, and the east side yard setback are secured. So subject to any questions, those are my submissions.
Panel members, questions of the applicant? I see head shakes. So we have no further questions. And then in that case, there's nobody speaking in opposition. So we will now go into committee. We are in committee, and I look to my panel members for a discussion. And I see a lot of heads down. So, I mean, I don't need to talk. Oh, we got Mr. Kaboo.
Mr. Chair, the presentation was great and the plan looks great, but I still have a concern regarding the recommendation from cities, from the planning staff. I was hoping the agent did provided some information or some rebuttal, but I'm not sure if the presentation I will give it more weight than the recommendation from the city planning staff.
All right. So, so effectively, do you want to make a motion? What I hear is that you're saying you've heard from the applicant, you've read the staff report. The staff report is recommending a refusal. The applicant, you've listened carefully. You haven't changed your mind once you read the staff report. So you're bringing a motion to refuse. Is that?
Maybe
okay.
I would like to hear from my colleague, and then we make a motion.
You think you're going to change your mind? You don't want to bring the motion? They're going to still get a chance. They're going to get a chance to either if nobody seconds it, we do go to something else. But I've heard from you, and I thought you were itching to bring the motion, and we will debate it regardless. You want to bring your motion?
So yes, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I would like to bring a motion for a deferral.
Deferral or refusal?
Not a refusal at this point. For a refusal.
Refusal.
Because, based on
okay.
the presentation, I still believe that the applicant has time to speak with city staff and maybe remedy some of the issues raised. So that is why I will not go straight to a refusal, but to a deferral.
So you want a deferral?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor for a deferral. Does somebody want to second the motion for a deferral? Mr. Bartolo, are you? No, you don't want to second it. I see nobody jumping for a deferral motion, so maybe we'll hear from Mr. Bartolo on what you might like to do.
No problem, Mr. Chair. I have a few thoughts on the file, right? Firstly, I do agree with some of the applicant's comments regarding the broader context. 4 doors over, you have a fairly substantial building in comparison to everything that's around it. And I buy a bit of the argument on the curvature of the street and the alignment of the rear of the buildings. That is just a physical fact that does occur, right? Stylistically, I think that what's being presented fits in with the neighborhood character quite well. And I personally don't think that there's going to be an adverse effect on the local community. I think it's done with some kind of thoughtful design and care to make it fit into the local context, and I'd lean more towards an approval of this application.
Is that a motion, or is that just for?
It can become a motion in about 10 seconds.
Can be a motion into, so you're waiting for somebody else to make it, or you want to make it?
If I'll make it. Given what I've heard here today, I buy the applicant's submission. Therefore, I'll put forward a motion to approve this application, subject to the standard forestry conditions in the memo attached.
Okay, so we've now got a motion on the floor for approval.
As amended.
amended.
Oh, as amended by the applicant to be built substantially in accordance with the plans submitted before the committee.
And so he made a few changes, right? Like he
That's
made
right.
some changes to the
be
variances, and then he talked about a site plan
That's
as well in the last 20 seconds of his presentation.
So let me just be clear on my motion, and I'll put forward a motion to approve this application as amended before us today and in accordance with the updated plan submitted and subject to the conditions of the urban forestry memo.
Okay.
As amended.
Mr. Applicant, can you come back and give me the proper date on the amended plans, please?
Yes, through the chair.
So
the
we're out of
the
committee now,
revised-
just for the purpose of this information. All right, Mr. Applicant, just so for the record, so we have that detail, please.
Through the chair, the plans were submitted to the committee on July 8th.
And site plan. Yes.
So, Mr. Bartolo, do you have the information that you feel you need to complete your motion?
I do, as long as the city staff have picked up the amendments made by the applicant previously.
I heard substantially in accordance with the site plan and east elevation,
Correct, and as amended by.
as amended, and forestry, is that what you said? Yes, thank you.
We've got, Mr. Secretary Treasurer, you've got the information that you feel you need on this motion. But again, we're not in committee, but you've got the information that you needed. I'm presuming there's no other reason not to go back into committee, so we are now back in committee.
Right.
You can complete your motion, so we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, let's try and clear this one up and get it nice and crystal clear. I'll put forward a motion to approve this application subject to the following conditions: the amendments made before the committee by the applicant here today, subject to the east elevation and site plan submitted July 8th to the City of Toronto, and subject to the conditions of the urban forestry memo attached.
Okay. So now we have the motion on the floor to approve, and we have two other panel members that we haven't heard from. So I look to each of those, and I see a hand raised by Ms. Sankar. Is that?
I second the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor, and the motion is seconded. Haven't heard from Mr. Marzier, but do you want to say? Well, I'm getting. Okay. So let's just put it to a vote then. So all those in favor, and those opposed can vote opposed to it. You want to abstain? I don't know, but you should. I think you're opposing it. Okay, so it's approved on a split decision. That concludes the morning session. Thank you to, congratulations to the applicant. Thank you to the presenters today and to our panel. And we are at a break now until 2 p.m. We've got a half an hour for lunch. All right, so let's come back at 2:15 then. We're going to be. Well, I've had a request from a panel member. I respect that. Is that sufficient for you? 45 minutes? Well, do you need a full hour? Well, I was going to propose a half hour. You've asked for more, so now I